With UFO investigator Ross Coulthart officially challenging the US Congress when it comes to UFO topics, insane UFO claims being dropped on the Rendlesham Forest incident, UFO investigator Jeremy Corbell issuing some seriously stark warnings to Congress, and the Pentagon being kind of exposed for not being able to hide over 8,000 UAP sightings. There's been a hell of a lot that has gone on with regards to the UFO topic. So the first thing that we talk about this week was a UFO investigator by the name of Ross Coulthart, who officially stirred the pot when it came to Congress. It would seem Ross Coulthart is about to ruffle yet more feathers. Obviously, Ross Coulthart is a man who, especially in the last 6 months, has really risen to kind of prominence. Not prominence, but, you know, he seems to be dominating the headlines in the UFO space because of the claims that he's making. He knows whether it's to try and stay relevant or not. I don't know if that typically matters to someone like Ross Coulthart, but a lot of the News Nation episodes are very clickbaity, rage-baity kind of videos at the moment, as opposed to what they used to be where it was very evidence-based. And, you know, Ross is catching a lot of flack for that at the moment, where people are saying, you know, 6 months ago, Ross Coulthart was incredibly credible, and he wouldn't typically make a claim unless he had the evidence to back up the claim. Whereas now it's just claim, 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 no evidence to support it, or I can't provide evidence of this at this current time, which is then leading people to be like, well, then I can't necessarily believe you. But like I said, he seems to be ready to ruffle yet more feathers. And this time it might be in Congress, as Ross Coulthart has claimed that UAP hearings are a quote-unquote dog and pony show, and that Congress knows a lot more than they're actually letting on, and we're being shown and told what we're allowed to be told, which obviously completely goes against what Congress are trying to do with their congressional hearings, which is to get whistleblowers forward, get evidence, to then bring it for public disclosure. But apparently they are what they swore to destroy, if that makes sense, at least in the terms of Ross Coulthart. Here's what he had to say.
The simple fact is national security does have to be protected. And as much as a lot of us may not like it, if there is technology or systems or weapons systems in particular, or propulsion systems and energy systems that have been developed in the black from non-human technology, I guess it's kind of inevitable that some senators in particular will collude in endeavouring to protect that from public knowledge unless and until probably the President or the National Security Council that really control the narrative on all of this is going to say, you know what, guys, let's be honest with you. That's what's going on here. To some degree, the public hearings are a dog and pony show. You know, we're being shown and told what we're allowed to be told. There's a hell of a lot more that's known about inside the private skiffs, the secure skiffs inside the Congress where briefings have been given. Congressmen and senators, congressional representatives and senators know a hell of a lot more privately than they do or can talk about publicly. And this is one of the dilemmas right now, and I sense a growing impatience from UAP social media that it's just not fair. And it's not fair. Absolutely, it's not fair. But the simple fact is, if the US does have classified, waived, unacknowledged special access programs operating under compartmentalized security clearances, and if these are in some way authorized by some kind of presidential executive order or presidential executive action directive or emergency action directive, a so-called PED, I guess there might be some perceived legal legitimacy for why this is all being kept secret. And I think we're just going to have to muddle on, and I don't think you're ever going to see the kind of disclosure that people are hoping for in the Congress. It's going to have to come from President Trump or whoever it is in the White House when the decision is made to be more candid with the public.
Obviously, that's gonna ruffle some feathers, you know, like, because you've got the likes of Eric Burleson, Representative Luna, Tim Burchett, all of those people who are like fighting for UAP advocacy. Even Representative Luna, right, was having an online Twitter spat, sort of, a bit of a back and forth with Lou Elizondo over skiff timings and, you know, who blew who out, essentially. So, you know, you can see that this is going to upset a couple of people. Yes, we already know for a fact that we aren't being told everything that they get told, because obviously there has to be some kind of countermeasure to stop people from just blurting stuff out, because there could potentially be some kind of, you know, national security risk. But obviously, is it as bad as Ross is making out, or is it actually as bad as he truly is making out? Do you know what I mean? Like, is he exaggerating this? Or is it actually like we're being lied to by Congress as well as by the people that they claim are lying to us? It's weird. It's weird, and we've seen a real shift in the UAP space, especially over the last maybe 3 to 4 months, where it was, you know, everyone, there was always inner conflict, but, you know, like, oh, he's a disinformation agent, and they're lying to you, and they're an operative, and all the rest of it, right? But it was like, you know, there was the UAP bubble of people that wanted to get disclosure out against the world, and then this bubble in the last, like, 3 to 4 months has slowly started turning on each other, and it's like him versus him, her versus him, them versus them, and then there's like this inner conflict where instead of pushing disclosure forward, it's like, you're lying, no, you're lying, well, you're saying this without any proof, your proof is AI generated, your proof is fake, and then it's like, and now we're literally going no further forward, and we're just watching drama and handbags get thrown. But moving on from that, Ross Coulthart didn't stop there, as he's made some more claims that field operations have ceased at Skywatcher after James Fowler has withdrawn his technology and has basically moved himself into contracting work for the Defence Department, who of course is basically the people that he was working not against, but against.
I'm actually not privy. I've been hoping that at some stage a media organisation like myself might be invited to come out in the field with the Skywatcher team while they were doing their observations, and particularly their psionic summonings. That's not happened, and it looks like, from what the announcement today is indicating, it looks like they're discontinuing any more field operations now that James is withdrawing his equipment from the field, which is a great pity. I would have loved to have seen much more technology being used. For example, at one stage, I know there was talk of a NASA collaboration where NASA was going to bring a very high-quality camera in to allow much more high-resolution observation of objects. So I think, to be realistic, this has happened as something of a surprise to a lot of people, myself included. I wasn't aware until very recently that James was departing Skywatcher, and I think we all wish him the very, very best and hope he gets some lucrative contracts from the Defence Department. Hopefully he's finding lots and lots of UAPs.
Not that we'll ever find out, though, even if he did. Like, that's the whole issue, isn't it? Anyway, moving on, I just thought I'd like throw this in at the end of this video as well, just to kind of like round it up, because I've been away for a week, so trying to kind of get myself back into the loop of things. But the Y-Files obviously has done a lot of work around the UAP topic especially, and they've basically made some claims against UAP whistleblowers and have stated that anyone that gets cleared by the DoD isn't a true whistleblower and they're just doing it for PR reasons. Bold claims. Are they wrong, though?
But something's going on. I've seen videos. Most, you know, I don't believe the whistleblowers. I don't believe anyone from Air Force Intelligence. I don't believe any of that. And if you have a book out, I don't believe what you're saying. If you're cleared by the DoD,
I definitely don't.
I definitely don't. If you still have clearance and you're still a contractor and you're still working with DoD, I can't. You're not a whistleblower. You're doing PR. So, with all due respect, I don't believe you guys. Matthew Brown, I think his last name is Brown. He's kind of a compelling whistleblower because he doesn't go over the top. He just says, "I found evidence of, you know, something going on in space," and that's really all he says. Now,
obviously, we can all see who he's pointing the finger at here, with the book being out, still having clearance, still working for the DoD. Obviously, we've got Lou Elizondo, who bought a book out, went on a massive PR tour to try and sell his book, and then has been, you know, trying to keep himself as relevant as possible ever since. You've also got the likes of David Grush, who obviously did have his clearance revoked. I believe it's been reinstated since he's started working with Tim Burleson. It is Tim, isn't it? I think it is. And then obviously Matthew Brown was on the Weaponized podcast. We've not really seen too much of him since either, which adds to his the compellingness of his story. Obviously, with regards to he's just been on Weaponized, done his thing, disappeared again. That was kind of as far as he went. He was obviously the one that blew the lid on the Immaculate Constellation, which is still to this day a very large and questionable thing. But keeping on the topic of Ross Coulthart, he had hosted some people who are allegedly witnesses to the UK's Roswell incident, otherwise known as the Rendlesham UFO incident. The Rendlesham Forest incident, otherwise known as the UK's Roswell incident, is one of the biggest UFO incidents not only in the UK but arguably globally. Obviously, when you think about UFO incidents, you tend to go towards Roswell because that is the most spoken about. But in the UK, the Rendlesham incident is arguably one of the biggest. Now, if for some reason you haven't heard about this, or this is your first time hearing about it, let me provide a little bit of context to you before we get into the details of the latest updates, because this happened a long, long time ago, back in the 1980s. So we're about 40 years on. So, there's a few updates, which is quite a big deal. Now, the Rendlesham Forest UFO incident is often called Britain's Roswell, which occurred in December of 1980 near RAF Woodbridge and RAF Bentwaters, US Air Force bases in Suffolk, England, which is used by the US Air Force over several nights. Military personnel reported strange lights and a possible UFO in Rendlesham Forest. Now, here's the key events of what happened. So on December 26th of 1980 in the early morning, US Air Force security personnel, including John Burroughs and Jim Penniston, observed bright lights in the forest, thinking it might be a crashed aircraft. They investigated. Penniston later claimed that he saw a triangular craft with strange symbols, which he touched. His sketches of the object and symbols are widely discussed, and the team reported the light moved erratically and then disappeared. Then move on to the 27th through to the 28th of 1980, so a couple of days later. More sightings of lights were reported. Deputy Base Commander Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt led the team to investigate. Holt recorded an event on microcassettes, now known as the Holt tape, which describes light moving through the trees and a red glowing object. Radiation readings were taken at the site, showing slightly elevated levels in some accounts. Now, there were multiple witness accounts as well, so multiple airmen, including Burroughs, Penniston and Holt, reported seeing unexplained lights or objects. Some described the craft with no propulsion, while others saw beams of light. Testimonies vary, with some later claiming their health issues or memory gaps, possibly linked to this event. Now, there was an official response to this incident, so the UK Ministry of Defence investigated but concluded that the incident posed no threat to national security, and they suggested the lights could have been from a lighthouse, which was Orford Ness, or a meteor, or a natural phenomena overall. Declassified documents like the MOD's 2001 file downplay the event, but confirm investigations did in fact take place, and the US Air Force also found no evidence of a security threat, and no official US report has confirmed a UFO to this day. Now, there are a multitude of theories, hypotheses, explanations that have been floated about, like, for example, a UFO. Some people have said that it was just the lighthouse, and some people have just blamed it on stress or fatigue or disorientation in the dark forest, which has led to these kinds of potential sightings taking place. Now, this, of course, has led to a cultural impact as well. Many people have, it's become quite a hotspot for UFO enthusiasts in the UK as well. It's led to a lot of documentaries, books, TV shows. The Holt tape, the Penniston sketches are all parts of evidence that have been provided with regards to this case as well. But there's no definitive proof of UFOs at all at this point. Until now, potentially, as two UFO whistleblowers, well, that's what we can call them now, from this incident, just gave a major update as 2 US Air Force security officers have broken their silence, claiming a hidden UFO landing at Capel Green during the 1980 event. Entities, film footage and suppression. This could potentially change absolutely everything that we know about this incident. Obviously, this came in an interview with Ross Coulthart, so, you know, some people are going to instantly discredit this straight off the bat, but let's hear what they've got to say.
I saw a triangular object that was about 20 feet across. It went up to a rounded kind of top. It had a reddish amber light at the top. It kept distorting and changing. It was snow white. It looks a little different in the movie. There were parts of it that were, it just didn't look aerodynamic. You didn't know what to think, and you weren't in the right kind of normal mindset like we are right now. And this being, thing, or whatever, I've never said alien, came off the surface of this object. It was
what do you see?
It was like a bubble. It depicted in Dion's film. The best way I can describe it is just a part of the fabric of that craft separated on the ground, 3 feet above the ground, or a foot off the ground. I mean, these things in it faded out, and there were 3 individual looking. In fact, Bastin's the one that said, "Why are these kids here?" It just, everything was bizarre, and it was there. And who else was there is, and to describe them, there was the big eyes, but it was like Ghost, okay? It looked like Ghost. It wasn't like Close Encounters, the little aliens come out and shake everyone's hands and off they go. It was very surreal and very surreal. Did it happen?
Okay, I need descriptions. So, are they humanoid creatures?
Oh yeah,
What color are they?
Well, geez, they were like ghosts. Picture Casper the Friendly Ghost, but not friendly. Facial features not really defined. Inside these lights, and you couldn't see the lower extremities very well.
And they had arms. Did they have legs?
Yeah. There were 2 arms, and it went down on. They were on the sides of these beings, things, non-humans.
Did they have hair, ears,
Nope.
nose?
No, nothing. It's the classic Communion. You ever see the book by Whitley Strieber, Communion? Of course, everyone's seen that cover. That face, that's what it was. It was one of those alien or non-human, because I don't say alien. They could be from Earth. I don't know.
So they had big black eyes, was it? What were
They
the eyes
had
look like?
almond-shaped kind of, the classic wraparound kind of eyes. That was the most defining image of the face.
Obviously, very strong testimony there from these people. Okay, now a lot of people have said that it can be brushed off. Maybe they weren't even there. There's been a deep dive in the same interview to kind of, establish where they were at this time. Now, obviously, he's not the only person who has come forward. So the Air Force security police officers Larry Warren and Steve Longero provided obviously these brand new testimonies and claim to have witnessed what happened during the incident in December of 1980. Now, obviously we heard there about a little description of some humanoid creatures that he refuses to claim is an alien, but describes it as non-human. It's interesting, but some other key claims that have come out from these testimonies is a second UFO landing and non-human entities. So obviously that's what we've just heard about. Military filming and confiscation. So Warren stated that the incident was documented with still film and video cameras present in the area, and British police also took photos. However, he claimed all equipment was immediately confiscated by military officers during suggesting a potential cover-up. There's also connection to nuclear weapons. So Longero recounted patrolling the weapons storage area at RAF Bentwaters and a major NATO nuclear base at the time when the craft appeared, triggering alarms in the facility. This aligns with research by Robert Hastings, who has documented UFO incidents near nuclear installations globally, suggesting a pattern of interest in such sites. Now, Larry Warren's earlier role was also mentioned. So Warren was one of the original whistleblowers, having spoken publicly about the incident since 1980s, and his accounts have been controversial at best, with some inconsistencies noted by other witnesses like John Burroughs. For example, in a 2022 Reddit discussion highlighted skepticism about Warren's claims, noting that he described a closer encounter on a subsequent night, including being deactivated mid-step near a dome of light. Though details remain debated, Longaria's testimony is newer and less scrutinized, but adds to Warren's narrative. And then there's also health and psychological impacts. So both officers, like the witnesses such as John Burroughs, have claimed adverse physical and psychological effects from their encounters. Burroughs previously received a payout from the US Air Force for injuries he claimed were linked to the incident, though specifics were not disclosed. This lends to some credence that the idea of that something unusual affected these servicemen. Now, of course, these, like many other testimonies, have been heavily scrutinized, heavily micro-analyzed, compared, what have you. But it's highly interesting that after 45 years now, these people are coming forwards to kind of talk about what's happened. Now, a lot of people, like I say, will see that they've spoken to Ross Coulthart and instantly, discredit it. But, there's an argument to be made here. We had Jeremy Corbell coming forward to issue some very stark and serious warnings to Congress, stating that if they do not give his whistleblowers an opportunity to speak in front of the American public, he will just do it himself. Jeremy Corbell, of course, the UFO journalist under, a lot of people, has just come out with a stark warning to Congress, stating that he's got 3 UFO whistleblowers lined up, and if they do not get the clearance to testify in front of Congress, or do not get given that opportunity, he will just post their testimonies to his YouTube channel, Weaponized, with George Knapp. Right, and obviously this is quite a big deal, because essentially what Jeremy Corbell is doing here is he's getting the attention of Congress, being like, I've got these people, I know that they're credible, you know that they're credible, and basically he's calling their bluff. He's like, you want these people, you're complaining about whistleblowers not coming forward, like Lou Elizondo not going to the SCIF, for example. Obviously we've seen a bit of a back and forth between Lou Elizondo and Representative Luna with regards to that, and he's basically saying, if you do not bring these people to the forefront and give them this platform, I'll just do it, and we'll all know that you're just making up a load of cackadoodie. All right, and obviously that's not all that he's mentioned within this recent interview with Vice News, but that was one of the biggest talking points. So we'll get into that, and then we'll get into some other little bits and pieces that we've, discovered from this podcast episode. Obviously, if you want to go and check out the full thing for yourself, go over to the Vice News YouTube channel. It is titled, What the US Military Knows About UFOs, featuring Jeremy Corbell. Shane Smith has questions. Now, this obviously is the kind of key talking point with regards to the 3 whistleblowers that Jeremy Corbell has allegedly got lined up. I believe it was Matthew Brown was the last man that we saw on the Weaponized podcast to come forward, and he spoke about the Immaculate Constellation, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's exactly how it went. So obviously, we've seen some very credible witnesses, allegedly credible witnesses, come forward from the Weaponized podcast. So we know that Jeremy Corbell's kind of got his ducks lined up, but this is what he had to say.
So that's happening now, three whistleblowers.
Yeah, right now, man, already recorded.
Wow.
So if it doesn't come out in Congress under oath to the American public, and by the way, it's all safe, it's taken care of national security, don't worry, we're thinkers over here, right? The people talking, they're not idiots, they've worked their whole lives in the shadows. CIA, working in State Department, working in all official capacity you could imagine, from military to intelligence. They ain't dummies, they live here, they love this country, but this needs to come out.
Sure.
Especially because they're being enacted against. So the next hearing is to protect whistleblowers. If we get this done, we set precedent. If David Grush, who I said was a baller, right, Godzilla, if that mother is taken care of,
So he's no longer working for the government.
Well, no. See, this is a historic thing. So Representative Burleson and the task force under Luna brought him as a whistleblower back into government because he had all the clearances for a limited time to be the kind of liaison to the world of whistleblowers to help them bring people forward to do congressional hearings. So it's weird. You get a whistleblower who's now a government employee again. So this is a guy who's a real credit to the intelligence.
Do you think there'll be any new information come out of that? Those congressional hearings or not?
100. What if they do the hearings? Yes. If not, it'll come out on Weaponized and me and George Knapp, because we already recorded with him. We're going to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help us God.
There you go.
So he's like basically firing a little shot there towards Congress, being like, look, we've got this all lined up. We know that this is not going to compromise national security, so don't try and even use that as an excuse to not get these whistleblowers out. Use them, put them in front of the, American public, let them tell their story, and, expose what they need to expose. And if you don't, we all know that you're just like, mouth music in it, and we'll just do it ourselves. So basically, it's a bit of a catch-22 where, there are, essentially, Jeremy Corbell doesn't seem to be the loser in this situation. The whistleblowers don't seem to be losers in this situation. But it's now, the ball is firmly in Congress's court, and they can do with it what they will. Now, obviously, this isn't the only thing that they mentioned. So there was another part as well about, bionic or biologics and stuff like this with regards to AI and things like this. So let's have a little listen to that, because that's also a very interesting talking point.
Biologics.
Do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
Biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
He didn't say beings, bodies. He said biologics. And there's a reason he said that.
Yeah, why?
Well, I think you should ask Dave. He's smarter than me. But I
He's
think,
not here.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Well, we can call
Keep
him.
going. Biologics.
Biologics. I think because we make the assumption that's why we changed it to non-human intelligence. We make assumption extraterrestrial, alien. Well, maybe they're from here. They're ultra-terrestrials. Maybe some of these things are just like printed flesh with AI. We'd call that a biologic.
Oh, I see.
Because we do that.
Yeah.
We print organs. So I think he's leaving the terminology open for interpretation. But what he's saying is, they're aliens and craft.
I remember talking to Larry Page, and he was saying, for space travel, it doesn't...
Obviously, that's always been something that's been picked up as well, is like the term non-human intelligence is never labelled an alien, because if you label it an alien or an extraterrestrial, it means it's come from somewhere else. But, open to interpretation. Technically, he's then not lying when the secrets really do come out. Now, there was a lot that they spoke about. So another hot talking point was the Mosul orb footage, which obviously is in the possession of Jaime Maussan right now. So, that's... people are going to, take issue with that and umbrage because of his, track record when it comes to biologics and stuff like this. But they also spoke about the pyramid UFO, the jellyfish UAP that Jeremy Corbell released back in 2024, I want to say. The Tic Tac incident from the Nimitz encounter back in 2004. The gimbal footage from 2008. They're all very, widely spoken about talking points. We know a lot about that already. They talk about government acknowledged cover-ups, whistleblowers and congressional hearings. That's obviously the part where David Grush was heavily mentioned, and so were these three other whistleblowers. There's the Bob Lazar claims, which is quite an interesting talking point, actually. So Corbell revisited Bob Lazar's 1989 allegations of working on 9 extraterrestrial craft after Area 51's S4 site. Despite skepticism, Corbell believes that Lazar's consistent story aligns with recent congressional testimonies about reverse engineered programs like the Immaculate Constellation, for example, and these legacy programs that we're hearing about. And then, to kind of wrap up, he talks about crowdsourcing and journalism. So he's basically likening what is going on right now to like online sleuths solving crimes, like for example Don't Fuck with Cats, if you remember that show on Netflix, I think it was. And he uses the cosmic time and rigorous journalism to verify sources, enabling credibility without rushing to break stories. And that's kind of like what he pushes for people to do, because when people rush to break stories, it would seem there could be inconsistencies, there could be not full truths, and things could come back to bite people on the arse later on. So very interesting stuff. Obviously, like I say, the ball is firmly now in the court of Congress and what they choose to do with it. We all know that Jeremy Corbell has got close ties to that of like Representative Luna, for example, who usually chairs or will organise these hearings. I believe from the rumor mill that there are supposed to be more congressional hearings happening in 2025. Well, I say it's meant to. It is meant to, but whether that actually happens, we're yet to see. And then it was exposed by none other than the Daily Mail that the Pentagon has failed to hide over 8,000 UAP sightings over US military bases. 8,000 mysterious UFO orbs hovering over US military bases. That is the headline from a recent Daily Mail article that went live on the 27th of August. And it's caused quite a stir, as it has been shared by multiple people across the UFO space. Some people who have been in it for a little while, and some people who are new batters in the field. And it's causing a bit of a commotion, to say the very least. So for anyone that hasn't seen the article yet, there's a bit of context here for you guys, just to kind of get you up to speed with what this article is actually about. So the article, which was actually authored by Chris Mellor, which highlights data from Enigma, which is a crowd-sourced platform for reporting UAP sightings, which has documented well over, get this, 8,000 sightings in the United States during a specific period. Of those 422 reports that were shared, specifically described metallic orbs, with 360 occurring near military bases such as Fort Hamilton in New York, Papago Military Reserve in Arizona, and LA Air Force Base in California. So those are kind of the key hotspots. And obviously this has got people quite buzzed, because the airspace around military bases in particular should be tighter than, I'm not even going to say what it should be tighter than, but I'm sure you're probably very well aware. And then obviously for there to be this many, UFO encounters over these airspaces is either one of two things. It's either, the fact that the airspace isn't as controlled as many people thought, and it is something truly extraterrestrial or from a foreign adversary, or it's a secret program that the military are running and they just don't want you to know about it. Either or, it's interesting. Now, there are a lot of characteristics to these orbs. So eyewitnesses, including civilian pilots and military personnel, have described the orbs as hovering silently, often between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. before moving at extreme speeds and disappearing without a trace. Some sightings were even captured on video or on radar, but most remain completely unexplained at the time of the report coming out. Now, the Pentagon has officially investigated 757 UAP cases between May 2023 and 2024, with 21 classified as unresolved due to insufficient data. Obviously, that's quite a big deal, because if the military and the AARO, which is the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office of the Pentagon, aren't able to actually categorize, debunk, or explain what these things are, it remains as a UAP, right? Because it is unidentified, it is anomalous, and well, obviously it's aerial phenomena. So it's quite a big deal, and there's a lot of likening between these orbs and the Boogosphere, for example, as that was obviously a metallic object that was recovered in Colombia back in March, and a lot of people are saying that that specific shape and spherical kind of chrome shape is very akin to that of the sightings that have been taking place over military bases. And if that is the case, then again, speculation has run wild that perhaps this is, all related in some capacity. Obviously, that hasn't been confirmed nor denied. But the reason that this has started to get a lot of traction is because it's been shared by some heavy hitters in the UAP space and talked about by some even heavier hitters. So I know that Patrick Van Vetted has covered this, for example. Christian Harloff has been talking about it. But we've also got Ross Coulthart over on Twitter sharing the Pentagon baffled by small metallic UFO objects hovering over US military bases, which of course is the title of the Daily Mail article, and he shared it to his personal Twitter page, sharing the direct link, which of course got a lot of people kind of baffled about it and talking about it. Now, obviously, you know, Ross Coulthart would share this kind of thing, and you're probably wondering, well, why? Well, it kind of aligns with the narrative that he likes to go with, which is, you know, or not the narrative at least, but, you know, the aim of what he claims to want to do, which is to share UAP topics to try and get full disclosure, no matter the cost, right? And, of course, it challenges the official narratives as well, which is something that Ross Coulthart likes to do at the moment, which is, you know, challenge what we're being told by the DOD, by the Pentagon, even by Congress, even though we're all supposed to be on the same side, but, you know, sometimes they're not. We've seen that Ross Coulthart is already ruffling the feathers of Congress by stating that, you know, it was only a few days ago I spoke about it, where Ross Coulthart was talking about how it's all just smoke and mirrors, essentially, and it's just a load of BS. But it also supports the whistleblower claims of David Grush, for example, who Ross Coulthart did interview back in 2023. So everything kind of seems to align for Ross Coulthart in that sense. So it makes a lot of sense that he would want to share something like this. But a critic of Ross Coulthart, you remember the lady that promised to expose Ross Coulthart back like last month? I don't know if she ever actually got round to exposing Ross Coulthart, but it was to do with that UFO, like, you know, that UFO that was allegedly so big that they couldn't move it, so they just built something around it, and everyone speculated that it was in, like, Korea. Well, yeah, apparently it was to do with that, but she never actually exposed anything, I don't think, but, you know, we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, she shared a post from Red Panda Koala, who, of course, did share this exact thing as well. And obviously, these are the sightings across the United States that have been sighted above military bases. So, Moneypenny, obviously, she was the one that's supposed to expose Ross Coulthart stated, they have come clean since NASA lost the ability to block the FOIA, which is the Institute of Physics, and got and published chunks of it in January 2025 paper revealing the decades-long cover-up of intelligent sentient plasmates. All of which are discussed in detail in the original videos, photographs on my profile, right? And then if you go and check out our profile, she's got some bits and pieces on there, kind of breaking it down, talking about it, and all the rest of it. So, yeah, obviously this whole thing has kind of sparked quite significantly across social media, with a lot of people. Oh, here it is, by the way. So this is the original post I made, went crazy viral, was followed up by many other investigations into documents that I discovered which had been hidden, not just by US scientific community, but also others in the intel community, dating all the way back to the Cold War, and of course the very famous Foo Fighters, which were the plasma entities which modern, non-biblical, theological humanity really encountered, and which are also in November 2024, all the rest of it, right? And this is, you know, there's a 17-minute video. We're not going to go through all of that, but this was back from May 11th. This was posted, and this is official NASA footage of living sentient orbs or drones. And, you know, so basically she's insinuating that these are what is being sighted over the military bases. It's a messy one. It always is messy. It never makes total sense, does it? I always come away from videos that I've made where sometimes I'm left with a lot more questions than I have answers. But then I look in the comments and a lot of people kind of like pick me back down from up here and they just drag me back down to earth and are like, this is what it probably is. And I'm like, you make a lot of sense with that. So do that again. What do you guys make of all of this? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. While you're down there, jump scare the hell out of that like button and subscribe. And until next time, I'll speak to you later. Peace.